So you want to get started in property, but you don't have a clue where to start? Well, I'm going to show you how. The biggest issue to get started in property is actually there's too much information. There's too many strategies, too many ways of marketing, too many ways to get investors, too many ways of getting properties. You got buy to let, lease options, service accommodation, commercial conversion, new builds, developments, buy and hold, buy, refurbish, refinance, assisted sales, rent to rents, rent to SA, service accommodation, and a hell of a lot more. Where do you begin? When there's so many options, start with the process of elimination. The best way to do this is actually just looking at your personal situation. So I can't tell you which strategy to start with, but really there's going to be a few different elements. There's time, experience, and money. Let's start with experience level. So if you have a background in property, maybe you're loosely connected, a mortgage broker, solicitor, maybe you've been involved as a refurbishment team, maybe you've got a family history of property where you've got additional support. If that is you, then it kind of opens you up to a multitude of situations. If you've already got a buy-to-let portfolio, then you're going to go down there. But seeing as you're watching this video, I'm going to make the assumption that you don't have the experience and you are at square one. So really that's going to limit you to some beginner strategies. Those beginner strategies are going to be lease options, buy-to-lets, deal packaging, and rent-to-rents. And within that, lease options is really only for you if you understand the management of property. And again, I'm going to take that one away under the assumption that you don't have that support system. So rent-to-rents, buy-to-lets, and deal packaging. Let's move on to the second factor in your personal situation, time. Time is one of those things that is scarce, but actually it's about the priority of time. So there's 168 hours in a week, and by the time you've been sleeping, eating, drinking, and everything else, you've really only got 70 hours left, and that's before the job. I'm going to make the assumption if you're at the beginning of your journey, you're probably still working full time. And if you're thinking as property for an investment, maybe you don't have all the time in the world. So let's say you have got 10 or less hours, or 10 to 20 hours, let's say that, when you've got your evenings and weekends to invest your time into this. Well, that unfortunately is going to eliminate rent to rent. And by the way, just because rent to rent was a basic strategy doesn't mean it's not got complications. But when you do a rent to rent, which is when you rent a property as a whole and then you rent out the rooms typically as an individual unit, you essentially become a property manager. So when you've got tenant complaints during the day, you've got to move people in, move people out, advertise for tenants, etc. That is time consuming, but not only is it the time consumption that's a worry, it's the variance of the input of time. For example, a tenant could need you in 9 in the evening or 10 in the morning. If somebody's doing a viewing and you go, I can only do Saturdays, that is going to present an issue. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it really depends on how on it that you need to be. So we are left with buy-to-let and deal packaging. The final piece is money. Okay, so let's make the assumption that you've got some funds. And when I say money, in order to get started in a significant way in buy-to-lets, which is the money option, you really need about 40 to 50,000 pounds. Now, that might not sound like enough, but by the time you paid for a deposit, your fees, refurbishment, it's going to end up coming to around that in most locations, Birmingham and above. If you're watching this from London or the Southeast, you might end up needing a bit more. But I'll get to that a bit later. So if you are going to go down buy-to-lets, what are your first steps? Well, number one, obviously consume as much as my content, and others' content as possible, okay? Now, I'm not the only educator on here. There's loads of people doing education. Find them, suss them out. Do they know what they're talking about? And then consume as much content as possible. The next thing to do is assess your area. So you want to jump on StreetCheck. StreetCheck.co.uk is a completely free resource. And one of the best ways of quickly analyzing your area is to look at the tenure of property. The average tenure of property, by the way, is the ownership versus rental in the UK. The average in the UK is 30% is owner occupied, owned outright, so there's no mortgage on it. 30% owner occupier with a mortgage, 21% in the private rental rental sector and 19% in social housing. Well, those stats on their own don't actually mean anything. What you want to do is look at your local area and see how it compares. What you're looking for is either a higher private rental sector, so 24, 25% rather than the average of 21, or a higher ownership in the area, so more than the combined 60%, say 65+%. What this is going to indicate is a strong rental market and a strong likeliness of capital growth, so the appreciation in value of property over time. The next thing you want to do is look at the average property prices in your area. The average property price at the time of filming this is £290,000 for the average property in the UK right now. Now, what you need to know is over time, everything moves towards an average. And so to protect yourself against recessions and everything else that comes, everything sub the average, so everything sub 290,000 as a property, even during a recession, is not going to get impacted but anywhere near as everything north of 290,000. So you want to be buying in an area that is there. The next step is assessing the rental price versus the property price in the area. And once you understand this, you're going to be able to work out your return on investment. So say, for example, in my area, the average property price is 130,000 and the average rental is £675 a month. I know that if I times that by 12, deduct all of my investments of it, the return on investment is going to be between 7 and 8%. That is a very solid investment when you compare it to the 0 point fuck all that you're getting in the bank account right now. Now that you've done your baseline research, what you want to do is now find the educator or mentor of choice that's going to allow you to niche down and end up educating yourself specifically on the strategy that's going to help enhance your journey. At the same time, you want to go to some networking events, and I'm not just talking property networking events, I mean business networking events where you can meet other investors that can invest into your portfolio, remembering that your network is your net worth. So, what if you don't have the funds? If this is the case and you don't have the funds, then you are going to need to look at deal packaging. Deal packaging is an amazing strategy. We do around £200,000 a month now. We've just hit our first $250,000 today as a month, which is a massively impressive team effort that's gone into that, of course. But ultimately, you are an estate agent, but instead of representing the person selling the property, the vendor, you actually represent the investor. Remember, there's all these people with money that want to buy a property, but they don't have the time and they just need somebody else to do it. So you find the opportunity, you agree a price, somebody else buys the property and you get £5,000 plus. My average fee is £6,500 plus VAT. So very much like with buy-to-lets, you're going to go out, consume as much YouTube content as possible, and then you're going to take 3 simple steps. Step 1 is exactly the same as I've just gone through with buy-to-lets. Just a reminder, you need to look at the tenure of property on Street Check. 30%, 30%, 21% and 19% are the averages. Make sure you're higher. Then you're going to do a check on the average property price in the area. Average in the UK, 290,000. We're going to go sub that to make sure we're going to benefit from forced capital appreciation over time. And then we're going to do an analysis of the rental in the area and compare that to work out what the return on investment is going to be. The next step is very different. Stage 2 is we're going to start going to property networking events, online events, business events, and start talking to as many people as possible about the returns you're able to get and the service that you provide. Now, you're going to develop this service and you need to decide whether you're selling the service or the property. And this is where most deal packages get it wrong. Make your choice. If you're selling the property, which is known as a sourcing fee, somebody is going to buy the property based on how good the negotiation is. So it could be you're targeting getting 10% off of the property price. So if it's £180,000 property, you're going to try and get £18,000 off of that, or get it at £162,000. Now, the problem with doing that is, well, the great thing is, what amazing deal that would be, right? The downside is, how regularly can you do that? And right now, it's a pretty hot property market. Getting discounts is really I mean really difficult right now. And so what you might want to rely on is selling the service. So when I get my £6,500 fee, it's not so much the property that they are buying into as an investor. We are finding amazing opportunities to get around 7% return on investment, amazing capital growth. It's a great house for some family to make the investor's house their home, and ultimately it's a completely hands-free service. So for £6,500, we will find the property. We've got a refurb team in place to get it done. We've got lawyers in place to get it through the conveyancing. We've got brokers to get the best mortgage rates possible out there. We've got a lettings company to manage the process so that their engagement is signing paper and watching the money come in on a monthly basis. Pretty good, right? And ultimately, the investors over here fund your deals. The cool thing with deal packaging as well is once you've started doing it more and more, you can package on 5, buy the 6. And that's typically what we do on scale now as a company. It's how I'm aggressively building the portfolio. So we'll package 5 or 6, buy the 6th or 7th. Package 5, buy the 6th. Package 5, buy the 6th. And we repeat it over and over because we can utilize the fees that we're getting in investing in property to build the portfolio. The final stage, now that you've got your analysis done, your proposal put forward, and you've started talking to investors, is you need to take the fee on and then start finding the property. The second biggest mistake I see with deal packages is they've heard things like, find a great property and the money will come. It's bullshit. Well, within reason. Obviously, if you're getting £200,000 property for 150 grand, shock horror, people want to buy that. But actually, why would you go out and create an entire business, entire product line, and then try and find a customer? That's ridiculous. So as with any other business, find the money first, understand the criteria, get paid upfront, and then go find the property. Ultimately, you then need to do the same. Find your mentor, find your educator, and get honing on their skill level and buy time back by achieving what they've achieved in 5 years in 1 to 2 years. And that's the power of education. The choice is yours. You can either cut your own way through the jungle or follow the path of someone else. And if that sounds like something you are interested in and you want to get educated by me, I'll put a link below. And if you can't find it, just put education in the comments and I will help you build that portfolio, start your deal packaging, or indeed your property trading business, which is a mix of the two, and get started today. So click the link below or put education in. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe and the notification bell if you want to find out more about property investment. And if you are new or a repeat viewer, make sure to destroy the like button on your way to watching the next video.